Good evening. You are joining with Business Today on ChannelEye. This program is basically about speaking about entrepreneurship and also about stock market and also investment opportunities for the Sri Lankans out there, and also those who are budding entrepreneurs who wants to be in the field and industries. We try to give knowledge as much as possible by inviting guests to the program on every single time we have the show. So today also we have a great personality to speak about a great subject when it comes to entrepreneurship today on the program. Stay with us with Business Today. Today's personality that we have invited into the studio is not someone that is new to the studio or to the program, because this person has been with us at multiple locations to speak about different subjects. Today also we'll be speaking about a topic that is about business and also investments and also specific to a certain industry in the country. And let's take a look at the personality today and find out who this personality is, who's going to be with us to discuss about business on Business Today.
Hasitha Premaratne is the Group Finance Director of Brandix Group. He leads the overall finance function of the group and is also responsible for strategy and long-range planning. He is the Managing Director of Brandix India APPAREL City and overlooks all joint ventures and investments of the Brandix Group. He is a director of many subsidiaries of Brandix Group, including listed company TJ Lanka PLC. He was formerly a director of Bank of Ceylon and was a committee member of Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. He was a board member of the CIMA Sri Lanka division and also the Sri Lanka Accounting and Auditing Standards Monitoring Board. He was formerly the head of research at H&B Stockbrokers Private Limited and possesses plenty of experience in the fields of capital markets, economics, strategic finance management, research, and his lecturing experience expands for 11 years for CIMA ACCA examinations in Sri Lanka, India, Singapore, and Philippines. He holds an MBA in International Finance and a BSc in Computer Science. He is a fellow member of Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, and the Institute of Certified Management Accountants. He is also a Chartered Global Management Accountant. Hasitha was the winner of the Tutor of the Year at CIMA Global Financial Management Awards 2009, held in London during November 2009. He was the winner and gold medalist of prestigious CIMA Star of the Year Award in 2012 and the winner of Young CIMA Star of the Year Award in 2006. He was the winner of the Most Outstanding Royalist of the Year Award in 1997 and was the Deputy Head Prefect at Royal College in 1998.
Yes, indeed. It's definitely a personality with experience and also expertise and also a vast amount of knowledge who is joining with us today. And today's discussion being about investments and also about Sri Lanka's economy and the stock market at the same time. We have invited him into the studio. Welcome on board. Great to have you on board.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So, Hasitha, let's now, since we are basically touching upon these three factors, stock market and the investments and also about the economy as overall and also the export sector, how that is when we should also access a backbone to the country's economy. Let's speak about the investments in a nutshell at the moment, in a snapshot, how it is like right now, how healthy it is for people to invest.
No, I think 2022 starts with a lot of challenges. We had a couple of years of COVID and not that the COVID is completely gone away, but it looks like things are settling down a little bit globally.
And we are adapting as well.
And we are adapting and we need to adapt as well. I think while we do that, we also need to understand the fact that there will be a lot of bumps, a lot of ups and downs that will come post-COVID. And in fact, as a country, if you look at economically, there are a lot of challenges, particularly on the forex side and other related measures. So investment climate is to start with is not the best of the times when you look at it as an investor. But having said that, another angle is that when the times are tough and when things are not doing too well, sometimes there may be opportunities that come in as well, because we need economy to grow, and if the growth to come, we need investment. So there is no doubt about the need for investment and the fact that we have to look at consciously not just short-term investments but more looking at longer-term investments that could drive growth. Because if you look at the last couple of years, actually 2021, we had a positive growth in the economy, but it was very much consumption driven. But I think we also need to have a manufacturing angle of the economy to kick in, particularly the export sector, because given the need of the dollars and not just for this year but for the future to consciously grow, I think it's very important that the investments are encouraged and looked at more from a medium to long term perspective in the right sectors, particularly looking at the export angle, which will give a different dimension to the economy, and also to see how the medium to long term fundamentals of the economy can be improved.
So you mentioned that it's not the ideal time, but it's okay to also invest. But at the same time, now we are speaking about the investments where we make investments on existing businesses. But what about the budding entrepreneurs? Is it a good time for them to start on their own thing? Maybe not to go to the extent of exporting, but at least for the local market, is it okay?
I think definitely, because there are many which first of all have started off quite a lot of startups, and if you look at globally, the startups are at an all-time best. I think India, if you look at the billions of dollars are coming in for investments into startups. It's amazing. So I don't think Sri Lankan entrepreneurs should look at any different, because they should look at positively and look at for the long term, because it's not only about just tomorrow, but it's more about building foundation, building the base, looking at how we need to develop for a medium to long term play. And on the other side, I think what is equally important is to look at the export angle, because while you look at the local market, it's also good to see quite a bit of the IT sector in particular coming out in more innovative ways post-COVID. We have seen the IT sector coming out, and lot of working from home, virtual working environment, which has got a accelerated the boost thanks to COVID.
And the education as well, I suppose.
Absolutely, and many sectors, including ourselves, who now look at maybe a couple of days of work from home when you doesn't necessarily need to be in office. So that brings efficiency and productivity, maybe cost benefits. And not only that, I think that gives you the access to globally play the game, because today we know that quite a lot of IT professionals are working seated in Sri Lanka, but to many global companies, and maybe 2 years ago somewhere maybe in US or in Europe, that you would have expected them to sit down and work, but today they do the same job seated in Sri Lanka. So that opens up the whole world, and I think gives it very different dimension. So I have seen quite a bit of startups looking at that angle, which is a good thing, but we need to build the infrastructure that is needed, particularly the internet connectivity and the other support areas on a continuous basis to support these new dimensions. So it's about looking at opportunities. It's not about just looking at the negative side of the story, because if you want to have negative, there are enough negatives, right? But it's about picking up the positives and looking at the opportunities and stay ahead, stay positive, and looking at how we need to capitalize and move forward. Because if you look at it in that angle, there are many opportunities that you can actually move towards.
And also, if I may add, I think if you start looking at things and opportunities in a global scale from an economical point of view, these are the sort of like the dollar generators that we sort of can invent here in Sri Lanka just out of an idea, just like that. Right, so since you are the Group Finance Director of a large apparel company, Brandix Lanka, and also Brandix Group, you strategize. You help to strategize the how the operations has to happen in the organization. So when it comes to the apparel industry, from your point of view as a CFO, as a Group Finance Director, what are the shortcomings, the challenges you had to face when it comes to strategizing with the COVID situation in the country?
Yeah, I think COVID brought us a significant challenge in executing the day-to-day orders. As you know, to get to the factory, get the people to come safely operate and get the goods out on time. So that's that fundamental basic requirement was challenged. So that was a big challenge for all of us. But I think industry did a phenomenal job. If you look at the 2021, we crossed $5.2 billion of apparel exports, which was very close to what it was in 2019, pre-COVID year, where the country exported about $5.5 billion. So we almost caught up. We had a drop in the 2020, but in a year's time, we managed to bounce back, and that really got a boost to support the country's requirement from a dollar perspective at a time when dollars are worth gold at the moment. But having said that, I think it's also important to understand that the industry went through not just the COVID challenge, but also there are many other challenges, particularly the main raw material, cotton. The prices have almost more than doubled
In Sri Lanka, or is it
No,
abroad?
globally.
Okay.
It's nothing to do with Sri Lanka, but it's
Right.
a global phenomenon
Right.
which has come in, and that has put a lot of cost pressure into the entire apparel supply chain, be
Right.
it sewing, be it fabric, be it in the yarn spinning. In all the areas, there have been quite a bit of challenge to absorb that increasing cotton price impact. So that has impacted the profitability of the industry on one side. On the other side, the logistics cost. I'm sure you would have heard about the logistics cost rising not just 100% but 500%, 5 times or 10 times of what it was
Right.
before. So that again is a global phenomenon where exports and imports on both sides, you have to bear a burden of your additional expenses related to logistics. So that adding on top, and then obviously the COVID also brought in additional costs.
Yeah.
The
Pressure.
PCR, the rapid antigen costs, additional transport costs, additional people related costs, many other different costs came into the picture. So these have impacted the industry's profitability. While we have picked up the orders, while we have seen a positive momentum in the country's overall apparel industry, one must not discount the challenges related to the profitability. So we have been constantly working towards automation, digitization, and other productivity improvement measures to counter some of these cost pressures that are going through. But at the moment, these cost pressures are coming to a point where I think the productivity cannot just simply offset on its own. So it's a challenging time. I mean, the rupee has, dollar rupee, if you look at, has been at 203 for some time. Now it's been pegged at 203. So as exporter, you don't get that depreciation benefit to large extent. And in that context, when you look at the bigger picture, there have been quite a bit of a challenge on the profitability of the industry.
Okay. So as a big player of the industry, now this you mentioned about the cotton prices globally has gone up, and also about logistics that has gone up. And so this can be a challenge to the small timers, I think, more than it is for the big players out there. And so what kind of advice would you like to provide for them? Do you think maybe finding alternative methods or alternative material will be something that they should look at?
Yeah, I think more than alternative material, I think it's about keeping your productivity and the basics right, and get the efficiencies up and get the productivity up. And that's exactly what the large organizations was trying to do, and I think it's the same for even the small and medium-sized organizations as well. Because most of the time when the cost pressures come, you're pressurized, you're pushed to a corner to think different, think new, be innovative, and come out of with maybe new solutions that can give a better positioning. And most of the times we come out stronger after this type of crisis or a challenging time period, because we've gone through a lot of new things and we've looked at things differently to come out of the crisis. So I think but the crises make us stronger, make us think differently, make us innovative. So that's very important for, be it a small company or a big company, for all of us to get together and look at this as a more of a opportunity to change and transform ourselves and be prepared for the challenges ahead of us.
And so far they have worked as well all these new strategies and new inventions and innovative ideas. Right, so moving on, now another side of this, really be apparel or any industry, I think policies is something that's very important when it comes to the assistance you're receiving from the government. So what kind of policy changes or sort of policy easing would you like to see in the future, talking from a business angle?
No, I think first of all, the stable policy framework is something that any private sector organization or businesses look for from the government. So stability in policy and consistency in the policies, particularly on the tax policies and also in the other areas of policies are important. So that's the first thing. Second thing,
when you say tax policies, would you like to see a reduction in taxes, or is it like a differentiation of taxes?
No, I think it's not about reduction, because we all understand that the government needs revenue. Right now, I think government revenues are at a very significantly low level. So we do understand that the government needs revenue, and it's something that needs to be accepted. It's not about reducing the tax rates, but it's about having a consistency in the tax rate, so that it will bring predictability into the whole system. So that's the most important thing. And on top of that, I think also one of the other key areas would be the availability of the resources, particularly the land. And when I say land, you know, in Sri Lanka, the largest landholder in Sri Lanka is the government, right? So when you talk about the government leasing out land or providing land for businesses. I think be it large or small, you try to go to a bank and take a bank loan.
Yes.
Then the title clearance and other related issues are most of the time putting a lot of blockages and disturbance to the overall journey. So I think it's important that these type of fundamental aspects are being addressed, and also if you look at the industry, you need labor, so labor availability to be looked at in the context of the different skill sets, and how we need to kind of bring the vocational training support to develop the skill sets of the industry, and on the other side the infrastructure, because if you take the textile industry, the apparel, the fabric part of the industry needs a lot of water and effluent discharge. But today if you look at Sri Lanka's current export oriented Board of Investment zones, almost all the zones are packed, right? All the zones are packed. So you don't have water capacity to expand in most of it, and a lot of work I know is going on at the moment to make expansions and make things available.
Isn't this something you can request as a circle or a group of companies to request?
Yes, I think we've been in constant dialogue with the government, the BOI, and I know action is being taken. Maybe we need to accelerate a little bit more and get the ball rolling faster. Because if you need investments to come, if you need growth to come, naturally these type of infrastructure support need to come from the government side.
Right. So you mentioned about that. Now that is when it comes to the point of view of the large conglomerates like yourself, like the Brandex. Also for the startups or the existing small businesses that are existing in the apparel industry, because I'm focusing since you are from it. And if you speak about the taxations, if you speak about the policies, do you think the current environment when it comes to the taxes and the policies in place is healthy for the young generation or the budding entrepreneurs to grow, or do you think there should be certain tweaking that must happen?
No, I think the young entrepreneurial businesses that are getting started need access to, number one, capital, right? Capital, like I said before, be it a bank loan or be it equity investment. So how do you kind of channel that equity or the debt capital into the startup businesses with less hassle? Because today if you go to a bank to get a loan, you need to have a mortgage property or something to that effect, and if you have got a lease land from the government, most of the time the title of that land is not clear, so you are struggling to get a clearance and get a bank loan to get your business started. By the time you get your loan and the capital in, you've lost certain business opportunities that may have been on your table, right? So those are critical ones that need to get cleared, and support is needed to clean up that on the capital front. Second area is the ability to get started quickly. For example, we've seen in other countries where you have industrial parks, and then you have shell buildings available. So there is a building put up for you, and then you come in and you take the rented building and then put your machines and get started. Wow. So in that context, it's called a plug and play type of operation. So start is very quick, particularly for a young business which is trying to get started, get orders and move. These type of initiatives help.
So the time frame from the idea to the actual operation could be within a week, maybe.
Yes, you can move very fast, but unfortunately in Sri Lanka we don't have that type of opportunity to go in and take a constructed building, rent it out and get started at a BOI zone fast, because it's not available. So these are things that from an infrastructure perspective we can work towards as a country, and when you have that plug and play infrastructure, most of the time things get started fast, and not only for local entrepreneurs but also for foreign investor, because when you talk about investments, it's important to also attract foreign investments to the country, given the current dollar situation we are in, and the need to kind of bring technology and other requirements. So in that context, I believe if we have these type of value-added services in the structure, in the whole system, it will be easy to attract a foreign investor as well. So that way we can look at the industry to grow beyond, because today Sri Lankan apparel industry, if you look at the cost structure of the economy as a whole in the whole system, I think our cost is not cheap. Right? We are not going to attract an investor because we are cheap. or we are cost competitive to a great extent, right? But we are going to attract a investor because we will have skilled labor in the country. And we understand the industry. There is a scalability in the industry in terms of the sustainable apparel, where environment compliance, labor compliance. Now these are the strengths that country have been demonstrated for years. So those are the value additions that country has, and on top of that, if we can have that infrastructure support that comes in with easy access to get started, and then obviously like what I said before, the policy is being stable, consistent for investor to come and get started and then move forward, I think we still have an industry to grow, definitely. So we have investments to attract, but what is important is to get those fundamentals right and know where our value proposition is as a country, and then see how we need to position ourselves and win.
Very clear. I think that's very important from a program like ours to speak for the people and also on behalf of the people as well, and also towards the people who go on the country to understand, so that we can communicate up and down both ways, so that the message is being sent. And also speaking about as the last question, how the opportunities that are available at the moment for any investor, whether it be local or international, within Sri Lanka, within this year. What's your point of view on that?
Yeah, I think the investment opportunity, as I said before, will depend on the type of business and the type of area we need to focus on. So as I said before, I think I spoke about apparel and how we probably need to approach on apparel. But similarly, if you look at the rest of the industries, IT is a big segment that has a large segment that we can catch and move forward. And in that context, it's important to have the right infrastructure, the internet connectivity, and also the skilled workforce. And that's a bigger challenge that we're going through with the migrations and related concerns that are building up. So we need to build that confidence back and to retain our people and offer those job opportunities, and not only just the job opportunities, but also the social infrastructure that supports that framework. So we've seen that during the COVID time, we've had a little bit of a delay in the university system to release a degree completed student. We have, I think, about depending on the university, 3 to 6 months of a delay. So that delay creates kind of a void within the labor force today. On top of that, the migrations coming in has created a bigger challenge in the business world to attract the talent, right talent, and also have the type of support to keep the cost competitiveness going. So these two need to be looked at, I think, as a policy level. From the government perspective also, there has to be the connectivity and the intervention to support this requirement, and that will help industries like IT in particular, BPO in particular, and those will definitely look at connecting the dots to other related industries, which can also give investment opportunities and entrepreneurs to get started, particularly in the transportation, food, and other related industries as well.
Okay. Great. Today's discussion has been very fruitful when it comes to investments, and also the snapshot of Sri Lanka's investment opportunities, and also not just locally but also globally at the same time. So today we had Hasitha Premaratne, Group Finance Director of the Brandix Group, joining with us today to share all this information and also share this knowledge with you to make sure that you get educated on what to do if you have an idea about doing a business. We'll see you next week. Have a good night.